I went from Syracuse being really a walk-on nothing to be a part of the legendary four-wheel drive, that group, to be drafted into the National Football League by the Indianapolis Colts. 35th player in the world drafted into the NFL. 35th player in the world, early second round. And then I go on to be thrown to the Lions. And what I mean by that is there was a lot of pain playing against guys that play in the NFL. I had made a promise that I would tackle anything that moved. And I was tackling the offensive linemen, and they were wondering, why are you tackling me? Why are you tackling me? And I would say to them, I don't know. Well, I don't have the ball, man. Why are you tackling me? And I would say, sorry. And then I would hit them again. And they would get mad at me at times, but I made a promise. Anything that moved in front of me, I would tackle. And eventually, more times than not, I tackled the right guy. But I started my rookie year in the NFL. I was a guy who came in at 260, 65 pounds and played most of my rookie year about 255. And I played against some amazing people. And I played with amazing people. And, you know, I remember the lessons that I learned from my teammates, Wisniewski and Donnell Thompson. And the funny part of this story here is our quarterback, believe it or not, was Art Schlichter. Art Schlichter, the guy in prison for gambling. He was our quarterback. And I'm wondering how many games we lost because of him throwing the game. Now, I laugh about that because I don't want to believe it was true. But obviously, you learn that there's good and bad in every organization. And the funny part is, when I became smarter and I realized I was living my dream, then I asked myself about the organization. And I realized the organization at that time, not now, but at that time wasn't real good. But then I landed here when I realized what a good organization was. And I realized what makes a good organization is there are people that are in it. And they're not just in it for a year or two or a day or two. They're in it for a long-term commitment, and they define what it stands for. And there's not a more classy group than the Green Bay Packers group. And I really mean that. It is a unique organization because of the Bart Starrs and the Fuzzy Thurstons and the Ray Nitschkes and even some of the guys I played with. Not the household names like Mikowski and Sharp. I'm talking about the guys like David Brown and people like Martin Murphy and people like Robert Brown and young sung heroes that were there day in and day out and lived and played because of the people that played before them. And I take my hat off to people like Mike McCarthy because Mike McCarthy makes it a point, as every coach should, that when you put on this jersey, you are special. And when you put on this jersey, you have a commitment to all the other people who dare to play from the inside out with that jersey on. And when you see the Donald Drivers of the world and the Aaron Rodgers of the world, you realize that, man, they're playing for me. They're playing for me. They're playing for what I did. Even though we didn't win Super Bowls, even though we didn't really have a lot of success, but we were a group that tried each day. And I'm so thankful that I had a chance to lay on Testaverde and break the ribs of Joe Montana. Yeah, I said it. Everyone knows around this neighborhood, Blaise's one claim to fame is, what, Angie? I broke the ribs of Joe Montana. And I'm very proud of that. I never knew it at the time, but hey, it is what it is, and I will take claim to it that he was hurting a little more than he should from the hit that I laid on that somebody else, I must admit, probably created by chasing him to me. And that was that amazing 1989 year that we ended up recovering, rebounding, beating the world champion 49ers, and going on to just missing the playoffs because I think the darn Vikings ended up winning that Christmas Day game. You know, I went from the Packers to the Chargers. This was a great experience, again, because of Bobby Ross. Bobby Ross was a coach. Because of my little bit of time with Don Coryell that would come and visit with us, a legendary coach that's since passed away. Bobby Ross was one of the most remarkable coaches on the earth, and he believed in people like me. And I learned about chemistry on this team. This team, 1992 Chargers, were a team that started 0-4 and went on to win 11 of 12 games. And I remember this story written in a newspaper. I was a journeyman, which I've always been considered a journeyman. I remember the reporters writing early when I arrived at training camp, this Blaise Winter guy is going to play defensive line. Who's he? He played for the Packers a few years. He's played for the Colts. He's a journeyman, blue collar, which I take as a great compliment now. Back then, when you hear that in sports, that means what? You're replaceable. Anyway, when I arrived here, they continued to write that if Blaise Winter ends up starting for the San Diego Chargers in the middle of the defensive line, it will resemble a donut with a hole in the middle. Can you believe? I remember posting that, didn't I, Angie? I posted that on our apartment wall, and I remember saying, ooh, he's going to eat his words. Not only was his Charger team dynamic because of all the players, not just me, all the players like Junior Seau, Gary Plummer, Steve Hendrickson, Marion Butts, but this team, defensive unit especially, went on to be in the top categories in the NFL. Number 1 in total defense, number 3 against the pass, and that guy who looks like a donut started in the middle of that defensive line, and my arms are around Marcus Allen, Hall of Famer. My body's laid on top of people throughout the NFL. This was definitely the highlight of my playing career in the Chargers because people thought I was done. They told me, Blaise, you've had a nice 5-6 year career. Give it up now. And I knew I had more in me. And I found a coach and a group of coaches like Bill Armsbarger. And I found a group of men that said, you know what, Blaise has value. And boy, what a great experience. We lost to the 49ers in a Super Bowl 2 years later, 1994. We lost, but what a run that was for me to put a little period at the end of my playing career and say, hey man, I found what I needed to find. I can lay down at night and go to sleep and know that, you know what, I know I was a player, a good player for a period of time, and I live my dreams. And I want my sons to live their dreams. I want every human being that has a kid to tell that kid it's possible. I don't care if you're born with a crooked nose and a hole in your face and you can't speak and people think you're retarded. You know what? You can do it. You can do it.